You're listening to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast, where we explore the intersection of people, business, and technology. This year, we're adding a new show to our lineup, The AI Advantage, to help you learn the skills you need to thrive in the AI era.
Welcome to the Power Platform Show. Thanks for joining me today. I hope today's guest inspires and educates you on the possibilities of the Microsoft Power Platform. Now, let's get on with the show. In this episode, we'll be focusing on evolving SharePoint, Teams, and AI. AI is affecting everything in the world we live in these days. Today's guest is from North Furby in England. He's the founder of NovaWorks. He is a lead author and facilitator on the maturity model for Microsoft 365. He's the author of 2 patents relating to medical devices, which is a little interesting fun fact there. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Simon.
Yeah, hey, Mark. Very good to be here. I wish I was there, though. New Zealand. I've not been to New Zealand for just over a year now, and I'm missing it badly.
I feel that, well, okay, that's not too long ago, though. As I have quite a few guests on from the United Kingdom, and I know you're in the middle of winter, and here I am, T-shirts and shorts outside at the beach every day. It's a different lifestyle from when I was living in London, and I was fortunate enough while I was there in in Christmas time to get a snow, which was amazing.
Yeah, we've had snow in the UK this week, which is pretty rare these days.
But January, man, it can be bleak in London, eh?
It can be bleak everywhere in the UK. Yeah, winter. I mean, it's been 2 months of just cloud.
Yeah. The lights out at 3 p.m. in the afternoon doesn't come on till 9 often. And as in when I say lights out, the sun's gone.
Yep, you're absolutely right. On the other hand, we're getting sunnier weather starting now, and you guys are going into winter.
That's it. The solstice is past, right? And
yep.
So, yeah. Crazy times. Food, family, and fun. What do they mean for you?
Oh, gosh. Well, let's start with my family, because that's kind of important. I've been married to Christine, my beautiful wife, for 38 years now. 38 years.
Wow.
God.
Epic.
She deserves a medal. So she's sitting downstairs trying to get over the cold that you can also hear in my voice today. But we've been together a long time, and it's still great. So that's rather nice.
Nice. I love it.
And then we have a daughter together. Well, obviously together, I guess. She's 28. She's a beautiful young lady called Ella Hudson, and she's soon to be Dr. Ella Hudson. She's just submitted her PhD thesis in biotechnology and just landed the dream job that she's been after for the last 7 years.
So cool.
So my family are kind of important. They're all quite close to me, so that's rather nice.
I love it. Food.
Oh, well, I mean, I've got no restrictions on food. I love all foods from all different things, apart from cheese. Cheese makes me unbelievably ill.
Wow.
But apart from, no, some people say it's a bad thing. I mean, how would I know? Cheese is good, but foods that I love, and I cook a lot. In fact, I'm, for a long time, I've been the main cook in the house. We redid the kitchen a couple of years ago, so I had an even bigger, more fun space to cook in. So, and we're just literally this last couple of days, we've started on a thing where we're going to try and be vegetarian during weekdays, certainly for the next month. We'll see how that goes. We're not vegetarians, but we want to try and do our bit. So we're going to try to be vegetarian 5 days a week.
Well, in London, my wife and I did it for a month. And here's the thing. I was brought up very much a carnivore and on a dairy farm and things like that. And a meal wasn't a meal if it didn't have meat in it type thing. And so for me, it was around changing a paradigm that was stuck in my mind that you can't have tasty food if it didn't include, a meat-based protein. And so I think, I'm big on changing paradigms that you inherited through your upbringing that might not work for you now, and that society has fed us that might not work for you.
Precisely.
We didn't cover fun.
Fun? Oh, well, there's just a list that goes on and on and on. I'm sorry. I'll give you the summary. Music, love music. I think I'm on my 129th band now because I keep track of them all. I've got a massive music collection of CDs and loads of vinyl and a very good hi-fi. And I play guitar and mandolin. I'm trying to learn gypsy jazz guitar, which is really hard. I love my cars. I've got a couple of classic cars. couple of Buttes
Wicked.
actually. Yeah, and but I also have an EV, and we're looking to buy our second EV this year. Games, we play Dungeons and Dragons a lot. We do all sorts of board games. I taught my daughter to be incredibly competitive at games, so she beats me now. We ski, and then I both spend the rest of the time boring people to death either about sustainability issues or technology.
I love it. So on my property here, my wife and I, between us, is we've created a brand called High Tech Hippies, which she came up with, and it's because we are trying to narrow one of the things that we've got 1.5 acres, and I've got a big garden, and I'm starting to develop a food forest because I want to eliminate the transportation between the plate and my food source. And we don't have any animals, which was very, like, the first thing I did when I bought the property was put fencing in for animals, and we've decided, no, we're not going to have animals per se. I mean, we have cats and I'll get chickens at some point for the eggs, but I'm not getting, typically I would have got sheep or a cow or something like that on to fatten up type thing. And yeah, so sustainability in the last, particularly probably since moving back to New Zealand, has become a massive focus for us from a practical perspective, not so much in our business lives, but what can we do to change things? I have a worm farm to recycle my vegetables. I collect all my grey water in the property, and I recycle it multiple times across trees and plants on the property. If I collect a drop of water, I want to, get benefit from it 3 or 4 times before it is, goes back into the earth type thing. So I'm trying to maximize that.
Yep. And it's really interesting. I mean, I got into the whole energy transition part because of my background, which we'll talk about in a sec. But the energy was where I started. And then I realized it wasn't just about energy. It's also about all the other parts of sustainability, and diet and how the way we eat is a big part of that. But it's just interesting to do, learning to cook just with really interesting, exciting, nutritious meals with no meat. That's a fun thing to do. So another challenge, it's a craft to pick up.
And you just need to look at often the Indian cooking, the amazing flavors profiles that they can bring out in food, and they're totally vegetarian-based dishes. So
yeah, about all sorts of Asian food. I mean, there's such a range of different stuff you can do, and I'm busily trying to pick up as many techniques as I can from wherever they are.
What's your favorite feature in your kitchen that you remodeled?
I mean, I guess the main thing is I've just got an awful lot of workspace now. We've got rid of all the clutter. We just got, I don't know, sort of like 8 or 10 meters of usable worktop. And so that means I can spread out and get all my stuff prepared. And, I can have, the dehydrator going in one corner and my bread machine in another, and still have plenty of workspace. So. But I guess the big thing, actually, it took some doing. It took a couple of chefs I know to convince me of switching from a gas hob to an induction hob.
Wow. Interesting.
So we're fully electric home now. There's no gas.
Wow. I've just been approved to build my home, our home on the property here, which has been laborious. I left London in 2019, and the architecture for it had been started in 2018, and we've only just got to approval. It's a long process. And one of the things in the kitchen that we're doing quite different than most is putting a commercial underbench dishwasher in.
Oh, yeah, okay.
Because they're much more efficient than your normal home dishwashers.
I did not know that.
And they turn around, like typically I've got, where I am now, a dish drawer, and it takes 1 hour, 15 minutes to do a standard cycle. A commercial dishwasher takes 5 minutes to do the same high-level sterility, cleanliness, that type of thing.
Yep.
Without that running for 1 hour, 15 minutes. And so it's just like, and it was from an architect. They said, listen, this is probably the game-changing feature we recommended new, builds, is that you pay a little bit more for a commercial dishwasher. It's still small, not a big industrial machine, but they run quite differently than your home user unit.
I've never heard that before. I'm going to have to go and investigate that now because it's interesting. I want to see what the energy profile look like, but also what's the water use look like.
Yeah. Let's move on and talk about your career. how did it get to where it is? What are you focused on now? What's the big bets that you're making from your career at this time?
Well, I'll give you the kind of, the bullet point version, then we'll expand on that. I mean, the really short version looks like physics, medical device, corporate, entrepreneurship, retirement. That's my career in a nutshell. Not exactly an obvious career path, however. Yeah, I studied physics, did undergraduate and some postgrad in physics and a bit of chemistry. Rubbish at chemistry, don't ask me chemistry questions. And then I spent 15 years working in the medical device industry globally, which was really cool. I mean, I learned a lot, got to do some fantastic things, traveled the world. That's where my patents come from. I designed two new, I've designed a lot of new products, but two of them were patentable. I made a difference. That was a big thing. I designed products that helped people. And so mostly it was chronic wound dressings. So these are the horrible wounds that don't tend to heal, usually in compromised older people. And I designed things and sold things to try and make that better to manage, better for the patients, better for the clinicians. So, and make the wounds heal.
How long ago?
Oh, gosh. That's probably 18 years since I left that industry. Something like that, maybe 20.
And, patents interest me, and it's something that I feel that I need to do at some point. But I just feel like, is it a long, drawn-out process to get a patent, or is it a relatively straightforward? And from the UK perspective, if that's where you did it.
Dynamics Minds is one event you don't want to miss. Microsoft product managers and industry leaders from all over the world converge in Slovenia to explore the latest in Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and Copilot. Expect 3 days of in-person community connection, trailblazing insights, and a location sure to inspire our creativity. Early bird tickets are on sale now, and podcast listeners get 10% off by registering via the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
I mean, New Zealand patent law and the UK patent law are very similar because my daughter's becoming a patent lawyer, so I know these things now.
Oh, no way.
Yeah. The key thing is, to invent something which is genuinely patentable. That's the first step. And there's a whole bunch of things, but it needs to be an inventive step that an ordinary person knowledgeable in the field wouldn't automatically come up with, and which hasn't been done before or talked about in public. So that's your short version. So if you can come up with a great idea that is patentable, then that's your first step. Getting it patented usually can take 6 months to a year if it's a good one. There's a whole bunch of searches to make sure that no one's going to challenge it. You do a bunch of stuff, or your patent attorney does a bunch of stuff, and then the patent office themselves does a bunch of stuff, which is mostly publishing it and waiting to see if anybody comes back and says this is infringement, or we've already got that idea, or no, it's just bleeding obvious. But it can be fairly quick. The hard thing is then protecting the patent. So anybody can come along and challenge it and go, actually, we've got something we either want to work around your patent, in which case you challenge them, or they've got prior art that they come back and go, actually, we need to constrain the patent or have it struck off. So there's more money. It's more costly to protect a patent than it is to create one. It's a fascinating area, though. In the UK, or maybe there's more patents have come out of Great Britain and I guess what we used to call the Commonwealth, heaven knows what we call it these days without treading on toes, than everywhere else in the world put together, which is kind of cool.
Yeah. I worked at IBM for 3 years, and they used to be the top patent producers, and just till recent times that they have now dropped out of that. And I've spoken with people inside Microsoft, and they get patent awards every time they get something patented for Microsoft. And often there was, with the MVP program and stuff, why is there so much secrecy around everything? And it's because of what you said before. They can't patent something if too many people, if it's leaked down the public domain or anything like that.
Yeah, it's not too many people. If anybody says, oh, I've already heard about that, that's it. Patent's dead.
Yeah. It's sub 50, isn't it? It's like a very low number.
It's none.
It's none.
It's none. If you go and talk to your mate down the pub and go, I've got this great idea, and then he gets challenged by the patent lawyers and go, have you heard of this? That it's in the public domain. It's none, which is kind of scary. So you're absolutely right. I sit on the Microsoft for Startups advisors board. So I talk to quite a lot of startups through that and through the university stuff that I do. And one of the top things I tell them is, don't tell your mates about it. If you think you've got a great idea, you can talk to me because we're under NDA, but don't tell anybody about it. Maybe your partner, maybe, but make sure he or she knows that they're not to talk about it. Yeah. Great stuff.
That's so interesting.
And of course, the purpose of patents is not to hide your your invention. It's to put the stuff out there so everyone knows how to do it, but you get the benefits of it for a little while. So basically, you're giving mankind your brilliant idea in return for about a quarter of a lifetime's benefit from that.
Yeah. I've gone through a trademarking process, so I know, one, I had to go through multiple iterations because it was not only just a word trademark, it was also a design trademark. And, the first iterations were considered to be too infringing on others because it involved the silver fern, which in New Zealand is, as you can imagine, a big deal. And so I finally got it through. And then, of course, where I really spent the money in the 10 plus years of having it is the infringement.
Yep.
Somebody comes along, sets up a new company and decided to use the whole phrase in it. They've not done any research or anything. And of course, it flagged to my attention. And then I had to lawyer up because it's only as good as you can defend it, right? And so, yeah.
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting space. The whole intellectual property field is fascinating. And probably deserving of more attention from the tech people, not just in terms of protecting what they do, but actually building some better tools for doing intellectual property management. And AI is both a problem and a solution in that space.
I like it. Let's drill into that. Tell us about, in the discussion we had before, you've been involved in SharePoint teams and AI.
Yep.
Just let's take those three broad headings. What are your thoughts on them, your experience with them, and your thoughts going forward with them?
Well, I guess, SharePoint's where I'm going to start because it's literally where I started in my move into tech because I haven't got a tech background. I think that shocks people sometimes. Here I am as an MVP and they go, so which technologies? It's like, no, I've never been in IT actually. I just started IT companies. But SharePoint for me was really interesting. I guess I've had my hands on SharePoint since Team Server. So pre-WSS, pre-SharePoint 2001, because of its ability to do information management. I mean, the way I think, my science background in particular, lends me to think about things in terms of information architecture and structures. The SharePoint, and also slightly before that, probably Lotus Notes, Lotus Domino, were the first tools I had hands-on that let me start to structure the information stores that I wanted to do, whatever the heck I was doing in my career at that time. And so then when I left the medical device industry, I ended up working for an IT company running their medical division over in beautiful York. And they were doing nothing with SharePoint. They were doing loads of stuff with content management tools, big, expensive tools like Vignette. I mean, proper expensive.
Yes, I remember Vignette.
And I said, well, this SharePoint thing looks like you can do a lot of what you're doing, but for like 10% of the cost, which didn't actually please them because they figured they could make more money out of Vignette. I don't know if anyone buys Vignette anymore. I think they may have backed the wrong camel there, but I got more and more into looking at SharePoint as a tool. And then realized, and this was really the core of me becoming an entrepreneur, realized that all the dozens and dozens of companies and organizations I was talking to, when you drilled right down into it, what they needed was basically always the same. There was a core sort of knowledge and information structure that everybody has. It's about sort of centralized content management, document center, about departmental activity, but there's two halves to that, the internal department and the outward facing part of the department. And there's all these structures I saw appearing time and time again. And every time I spoke to the tech guys in the company I was working for and others, their solution was throw a bunch of developers at it, do some complicated pointless waterfall processes and build a brand new one from the ground up. Now, this is crazy. They all have the same needs. They may not know it, but 90% of what they do is the same. Why don't we just build a core that has that 90% and spend the rest of the money on actually doing the bit that's unique to them? So they didn't listen. So I left in interesting circumstances and started my own company doing exactly what I'd been saying. I set up Cloud2. We built a product called Hadron, and Hadron embodied all of that, the information architecture that I'd been, working over for 5 years or so with that. And we think that was the very first SharePoint-based, what they now call an intranet in the box. We call it a solution accelerator, but we think it was that. There's just one other company that maybe has equal claim to that. And we did that, and we mostly focused on building that for the NHS because, man, they needed stuff. At the time, it was the average time, because we looked at the research, to build an intranet was 2 years and upwards of £250,000.
Wow.
2 years, £250,000, £500,000 New Zealand dollars. We were doing it in 14 weeks and about $100,000.
Amazing.
So that was my thing. And as SharePoint developed, we kept reworking the model and doing more things. But for us, it was always really about the information management and architecture and the collaboration, and not really about the traditional comms want an intranet where they can put some things that no one's ever going to read. So that was the heart of my story. And then towards the end of my time at Cloud2, because I guess I ran that with my business partner for 10 years or thereabouts, and I had an exit plan. And then about 18 months before I exited, Teams came along.
Yes.
And at first I went, I don't really know what this is. Teams, it looks like a not very good version of that other product that I've completely forgotten the name of now, that was like a stream of consciousness sharing
Link
thing.
Originally, and then
Well, I did Link,
Skype?
but no, competitor product. I can't even remember what it's called. Doesn't matter.
Oh, yes, Slack.
So that's the one which I hated. And I thought that Teams was just Microsoft's bad attempt to build Slack.
Yes.
And then I had this, road to Damascus moment and go, oh, but you can store content in it. And you can expose that content through tabs in channels. And you can structure channels within team areas. And you can actually build an information architecture around collaboration. And that lit me up enormously. So I can build information architecture for collaboration, not just for content. And at that point, I suddenly became, one of the biggest voices of saying, this Teams thing, we really ought to be doing it. And I built out a couple of models for Teams solutions in the same way that I had for SharePoint, and started migrating the whole concept of an intranet into being embedded inside Teams. So you wouldn't have to go to SharePoint for one thing and something else. You just go to Teams, all your stuff would be there, including your email and your calendars. And that model still continues. I think Microsoft are catching up on the idea now, but the idea was your entire workspace is inside Teams.
Yeah.
Except when you have to spawn out to go and do something else. So we did a lot with Teams, and I've continued doing that a little bit since I retired. So I left Cloud2. I shut down a second company, a medical company that I started. So I now just have a small consulting company, but we still do a bit of work helping people get on board with Teams. And all the people that I'd helped that took my advice, when that thing that happened a few years ago, that pandemic-y thing happened, and we weren't allowed to walk outside the house, all the companies that had taken my advice just went and switched to remote working without missing a beat, and all the others ran around with their heads on fire. So I was really quite proud of that piece of envisioning that we had.
Now introduce AI.
Yeah. So, I guess we're coming up to 2 years into AI now, aren't we?
Mm-hmm. November 22, right? No, November 23.
Yeah, coming up for 2 years. Since sort of human readable large language models came along and changed the profile, and that's been really interesting. I played around with AI a lot to begin with. I spent a fair bit of time talking about the benefits, allaying people's fears about the fact that that it probably won't ruin society overnight. It almost certainly won't take people's jobs, but it will take the jobs away from people that don't learn to use AI, as every technology in the history of mankind has done. If you don't adapt and move on, you will be affected, but there won't be a loss of jobs overall. And I did quite a bit of stuff looking at the ethics and morality of AI, and still do. So I have an ongoing, I'd like to call it a project, that's far too grand a title, but I have an activity to try and find out how we can build ethics into AI. We don't have it at the moment. At the moment, we build ethics around AI. We put these guardrails up that qualify the stuff we ask it, so you can't ask it to do nasty things, and qualifies what it puts out so it can't tell you nasty things. I want to build it into the heart of it. And the reason is, at some point, very soon, we've seen it in the last few months, agents are coming. We saw agents running inside self-driving cars already. These agents are going everywhere, and we need to understand what their moral framework is. And those moral frameworks need to be definable in a way that we can say, you guys in New Zealand, you've got a slightly different view on things than us laggards here in the UK have. And we're certainly a good deal different to the ones over in the US. I don't think I want to trust my car to use an AI built with US morality. It's going to run some people over that I don't want to run over. So I'm really interested in that ethics of AI, not in terms of how do we use it, but how do we make them ethical? Because if we can get that right, maybe our AIs can be the better version of us.
Well, yeah, my specific thoughts are very, very utopian in the future of where AI will go. And even on difficult things like organizational bias that has been built up over potentially decades, for then why couldn't we have an agent, a bias agent, that explicitly goes out and quantifies that and cleans it up and, helps enact new policy. So we don't just employ 99% males that are white, that are, because that's what we've always done, and therefore we're modeling off what we've always done, and that's how that bias becomes institutionalized. So I do agree with you. One thing that struck me recently with, Copilot and the Microsoft Graph and people, using it, and they've been collecting data. For the last 10 years, we've talked about one of the mega trends that are going to affect the world is the proliferation of data. And it's funny now because it's almost like we don't have enough data and the need for, training the future. And I think models will evolve with this. And then there's synthetic data, of course, coming in now with AI generated. But one of the challenges is that humans make mistakes. And no matter how hard we try to stop humans making mistakes, and it was funny, I was on a call yesterday and someone said, what do I need to change in what I'm doing? And I'm like, I'm not good at spelling. It's, it's part of my dyslexia. And no matter how hard I try, I can't see that I've spelt something wrong. I can't see it. And so if I'm going to go, I need to correct that mistake, I've got to understand that it's a mistake in the first place before I can correct it. The problem is in institutions and organizations that have SharePoint teams, etc., micro mistakes are being made all the time. You didn't put the correct T's and C's in a document. You didn't adjust the numbers in a spreadsheet. You dropped something that's changed the calculations. All these little incremental, and then you copy that document, and now there's 10 different proliferations of that mistake. And you amplify that across thousands of employees potentially in an organization. And then we go, hey, AI, learn our organizational data and let's use that as a grounding point. And then we go, oh my gosh, AI is hallucinating. Is it hallucinating? It actually might be just presenting back to us massive organizational mistakes that is human to make. And so therefore I think that the AI story inside any organization is a data story. And although we've been collecting data for years, there needs to be an amount of triage on that data and then also narrowing down when we have an AI use case to make sure that we're not giving it the ocean to operate on, but really we're giving it just the data set that is pertinent to the AI task, rather than we're going, hey, let's just give it access to everything and let it learn and find the patterns. Because the problem is it's finding the patterns of error and thinking that it's truth.
Absolutely. And, people like you and I and those within the community have been banging on about the importance of data governance since AI first became a thing a year and a half ago. Because if you've got bad data in your organization, and let's face it, almost every organization's data is rubbish. They've got some great stuff in there, but they've kept it mixed in with all the rubbish. Then you're going to get bad results out. It's a garbage in, garbage out model on steroids. So we've definitely got that problem. And I think maybe one of the greatest initial benefits of AI is going to be getting people to sort their data out.
Yeah.
So, I'm a silver lining kind of a guy. Maybe people actually go, well, maybe we do need to do that. That thing that they've been telling us to do for a decade.
Have you seen any tools that orgs can use that can potentially help them with this?
I mean, there's loads of tools, but at the end of the day, it's still a human judgment thing, and it's a process thing. Obviously, Microsoft have got tools like Purview. I think that isn't really going to help with the legacy data issues or governance issues. I think it's pretty good at doing some things about looking at the quality of the data, putting in effective lifecycle management stuff, all that content management where I started 30 years ago. Doing all that stuff right. There's no shortage of tools, but someone's going to have to, in each organization, bite the bullet and go, we're going to implement policies now, and I'm not talking technology policies, I'm talking organizational policies that said you will not keep your rubbish for 30 years. You're going to get rid of it after 6 months unless it's subject to a retention policy. You're not going to create duplicates, and if you do, it's a disciplinary offence. You're not going to do all these things that we've got away with because we had too much storage space and people couldn't find the time or wouldn't make the time to clear up. So I think there's some stuff there. However, there's a big caveat to this, which is there is an argument to say that progress is made through making mistakes.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of me that wants to get rid of all the dangerous and stupid mistakes, but a bit of me that says we still need to be allowed to have errors, because the errors make us go, oh, that's interesting. I wonder what that's telling me, or that chart I just saw, I know someone's just told me it's wrong, but what would it take to get there? And so I think this evolution thing, because evolution is a process of errors, and some of them are big and non-viable, and some of them are small and progressive. So I think that we need to find ways to allow error, but to make sure that we govern that which is truly dangerous. And accept that AIs are certainly no better than people. But, and we'll probably talk about this more, but this concept, and I think Microsoft, to their credit, because they get a lot of stuff wrong, but to their credit, this idea of a co-pilot, something that sits alongside you, you work with it, it works with you, you correct its mistakes, and man, it makes a lot of those. I've been doing some coding today, and it just makes mistakes.
Yeah.
But I'm smart enough not to be able to write the code, but to be able to go, that's not right. And then it corrects me when I get stuff wrong. So that co-pilot-y, my buddy who works with me, my shadow, that has lots of merit. And allowing ourselves to make mistakes, but then correcting each other is how we learn.
Have you watched Silo?
I'm 5 episodes in. Literally started at the beginning of the week.
Just because you use that phrase shadow, and of course it's very, I love it. As in, it's actually enhanced my keenness to get back into a bit of sci-fi because of where we are, in the world. And
well, I'll tell you what. Going off piece for a moment, go and find all the books. There's only 3 at the moment by Stuart Turton. It's sort of sci-fi, but it's cleverer than just sci-fi. I'm a big sci-fi fan, but Stuart Turton, top author. Start with the 7 Deaths of Evelyn Hardcastle. And if you don't like it, I'll give you your money back.
So here's the thing. I don't read a lot of novels, but I got into Dan Brown. And the reason I don't get into them, because my life goes on hold, because I've got to keep reading. And that means all through the night, I just read. And his most recent book, which was published maybe 5 years ago.
Okay.
It's all set in Spain. And how much of a predictor of AI that book was is off the Richter scale mind-blowing compared to where we are now. His ability to mix the real world with where things could go, just honestly amazing.
Yeah, there are some really interesting visionaries out there. I mean, the number of books that get published a year, someone's going to get it right some other time. But I think Dan Brown's really interesting, and he raises some interesting positions in his books. Are they great literature? They don't need to be. They tell a good story, and they present some interesting ideas.
Yeah. I see we're already over time. This has been such an interesting discussion. I'm going to close with this. We start 2025, where the conclusion of 2024, we have been marketed to heavily by all major players that agents and agentification and agentic is going to change the entire world in 2025. And I believed that, but I have become more reserved in my thoughts around that of recent times. And I suppose my reservedness has come about by my expectation of agentic is that something will act autonomously after I, press go. And my simplest example of that is my dishwasher. I press go. It's going to clean my dishes. I don't have to go and intervene most of the time. And I'm going to wake up in the morning and there's going to be clean, dry dishes that can be put in the put away in the cupboard.
And you have a high degree of confidence that it will do that. That's
Yes.
a key thing.
High degree of confidence, right? I feel that with current AI, right, one, it has this uncanny ability to give up when it runs out of steam kind of thing. It doesn't have what I'd call a heartbeat monitor on it. It doesn't go, it's still ticking over. I've started doing my own GPTs where I give it books. I've taken all my Kindle library, over 300 books, and what I've done is remove DRM off it, and because I'm only using it for myself, not public, and so then I've used it to create a
intellectual property position accepted.
Yeah. So it allows me now to query it, because what I found is that the way my mind works, I often have quotes in my mind which I have read and then I cannot find them, and I want to attribute to an author, but that's not available in the public domain oftentimes. And so, one of the books I quote a lot was Brad Smith. He wrote a book a couple of years ago at Microsoft, the head of legal counsel in Microsoft.
Yep.
And there's some quotes that he has on data, and I needed to get to those quickly. And so what it's allowed me to do is drill in and get those. But I've just finished a book called Nexus by the author of Sapiens and Homo Deus, and incredible view, because it's like it was only published 6 months ago, so it's like up to date around AI and the effects, and he talks about knowledge in there and how knowledge has been used over time but knowledge needed technology to distribute it to make it effective, right? The printing press, the telegraph, and like how the rise of communism and how that worked, and how having networks of people that knew information that others allowed massive control. And his concern was that now, any knowledge in the world required it to go through a brain to repurpose that into something else, right? You couldn't have a book write another book. It needed a brain to consume that book, write a different view, etc., and advance it. AI is potentially going to change that paradigm and change how information can transfer. So in other words, the communication and the technology are combining more and more. And so it just gives this really, but I went to that book, put it through in person and said, listen, just give me a quote per chapter. And I said, give me 21 quotes out of it. Well, it took 21 quotes from the preface, even though I directed it to do the whole thing. And it was like, let's take the preface and get you 21 quotes out of that, which were not great, not what I was looking for. And so that's when I go back to the agentic world, I'm like, there's still some problems to be solved here for me to set and forget and have confidence that I'm going to get an output that I'm after. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, well, I think, Microsoft and everybody else, they have to create the market. And so that's what they're doing now. We're 2 years into AI, and we're only just beginning to see the promises that they made in March 23, begin to be real. I mean, there's lots of excitement about it, and some of the tools are great, but they're not without their flaws. Let me be kind on that. So I think you're absolutely right that right now there are dangers of letting the AIs go and do whatever they have been told to do, because we may have told them wrong, we may have told them right, but they might just not be up to it. So I think you're absolutely right to be concerned. I suspect, or pretty confident actually, that the kind of things we're going to let the agentic, I really don't like that word, but let the agentic technologies get their hands on are going to be the non-critical systems to begin with. And they're going to be done, at least if they're done right, they need to be done with human oversight to begin with. I mean, this stuff's all in the Microsoft Maturity Model piece on AI anyway. But that need for human oversight until we're confident and put in place human-like processes. I talk about this every now and then. It was a guy from Capgemini, actually, that I've stolen his idea. But he said, AIs that take the job on of a person need to have the same controls that a person would have. They need to have a manager. They need to have a set of objectives. They need to have performance reviews. They need to have things that are done to them if they perform badly. And so I think that mindset of absolutely, let's use agents where they're appropriate, but not just make it a tech thing, you plug it in and leave it to its own devices, but treat it just the same as another member of staff that needs to live up to their salary and expectations.
Yes.
So I think there's something really powerful in that. However, However, there's a flip side. I did a session with, do you know Bill Ayres?
Oh, the name rings a bell.
Bill Ayres, long-standing MVP in the UK. Definitely someone you should get on your show. He's a fantastic, fascinating guy. Bill and I did a session back in Texas in April on AI doppelgangers. So because I'm intrinsically lazy, although my diary says otherwise, I'm intrinsically lazy. I want an AI Simon. I want a doppelganger of me that can do some of the things that I can do. I want it to know the stuff that I know. Going back to all the points I've made earlier, I want it to have the same ethical base as me. So when it makes decisions and takes judgments, it does it in the way that I would. I want it to be able to take some of the load off me. But I also want it to be able to free me up from being constantly on call to people, so they 100%. Can do the thing and let me go off and live this wonderful life that I'm probably living already, to be honest. But I'd like to be able to do that earlier. So I want those kind of agents. I want my AI to have enough agency to relieve me of some of the drudgery. Letting me go on and do more, and just some of the turn handle stuff. Because I need to spend my time doing things which are genuinely more creative and insightful. I need to be reading those 100 books and going, oh, that's interesting because that book intersects with this one, and here's a brand new idea that comes out of that. The AI can't do that, but it can let me have the time to do it. So that's sort of part of my dream, is embedding our personal morality in the machines, getting them to learn from us as individuals, being my buddy that can look after my affairs when I'm asleep or drunk or enjoying myself. Could be all three of those at once, who knows? And letting us move towards that more utopian world that I think is actually a genuine possibility. We're
100%.
We might be living in it might be the last generation that has to buy energy, because we're so close, if we have the will and the political control, so close to having unlimited energy for all of mankind, if we don't screw up the world and kill everyone.
Zero cost energy, I believe that's definitely going to be one of the solves that we're going to get to. And that excites me because we saw what energy did to the last 150 years. And it was fossil fuel energy then, and it came with a price, but the invention that came from it was mind-blowing, right? So I think you're on the money. Simon, I think we could go on for hours. Thank you so much. It's been such an enjoyable conversation.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mark. I hope this reaches out to people in the way it's meant to, and I look forward to... Are you going to MVP Summit?
Absolutely.
Good. I will see you there as soon as I book my air tickets.
I'll look forward to it.
Lovely.
Cheers, Simon.
Good. Have a great day.
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If there's a guest you'd like to see on the show, please message me on LinkedIn. If you want to be a supporter of the show, please check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Stay safe out there and shoot for the stars.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parvez, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guy.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.